96A, 2 lines to the bottom of the page. Okay. Wait a second. Okay. We're in the middle of a question about collecting shvach. What is shvach? Shvach is, let's say, the specific instance in this in context where we will continue from is you have a balchayv, right? So I borrowed money from Eric, lovely creditor to have, lovely creditor, and okay. So I borrowed money from Eric. What happened next? I decided to take some of my property, let's say my only property that I had left, and sell it to Jules. So Jules thought he got a good deal, and he started investing in his property. And he built a barn, and he plowed the fields, and he planted some wheat, and he bought a combine probably too, and he was getting ready to open a wheat operation.
Farmer Jules.
And sure enough,
Did you say open a wheat operation?
wheat operation. And sure enough, Eric comes along and he wants his money back. Now, I don't have the money to pay him. So he goes to the property and he sees Jules has the property. So he wants to take the property from Jules and keep it.
Gotcha.
Now, the problem though is that Jules is invested in the property. When I sold it to Jules was only worth $1,000 and now it's worth $20,000. So he's invested money.
I'll take it all.
Okay. So the Gemara says that according to Shmuel says that you can collect the field from Jules and keep it. Now, if the debt that I owed you was $1,000, so then you'll have to reimburse Jules $19,000 for the investments. If, however, the debt was something like $20,000, then you can collect the whole field from Jules.
One more time.
Jules bought a field from me for $1,000, and he invests another $19,000 into the field. You as a creditor want to collect the field. If you owe if I owe you $1,000, you have $1,000 of debt, then you have to reimburse Jules for the $19,000.
Reimburse him for, in other words, the cost of his total investment in the field, or
Correct.
Yeah, I don't like that. Keep going.
Oh, the other, if on the other hand I borrowed from you $20,000,
Yeah.
then you can take the whole field with his investment.
All right.
Okay. 1 second. Okay. Now, not only that, when you go to Jules and take the field, you have a choice. Okay. Let's say, for example, the loan was $1,000. So you can leave Jules with $19,000 worth of the field and only take a 20th of the field. Or if you want, you can pay him. Okay. And that's sort of the Gemara's question. Second line, last word on the second line, 96a. Amarle, honey, Chalamanda Amari Isle Zuz Lekech, Le Matzim Salak Bachayev, Shopper. Elamanda Amar Isla Zuz Lekech, Matzim Salak Bachayev, Lemeli, Ihavali Zuzi, have him Seliknale, Lecha Mikuli Ara, Hashta Havli Grieved Ara, Shir Shavchai. Okay, so now, as follows.
I'm sorry, 96A, did you say?
96a, now we're just reading Gemara until about 6 or 7 lines down. Okay, it says as follows. Again, Shmuel says that the creditor, in this case Eric, is able to collect the field and force Jules into a cash settlement. $19,000. You'll give Jules $19,000 to cover his investments, and he'll keep the whole field. Jules, on the other hand, prefers actually giving you 5% of the field. Yeah, it's 5%, right? It's fine.
That'll be the day, Jules.
Jules would prefer giving you 5% of the field, and keeping the rest of the field. So now there's a general question. Let's say Jules has let's say Jules has $1,000 cash. Can Jules give you the $1,000 cash and say, I don't want you collecting the field at all? Don't take the field. Here's money. Take cash.
Yeah, the creditors investment.
So this is a debate. This is a debate. Now, according to the opinion that says that Jules cannot repay cash. Okay, then I understand that Eric can force Jules into a $19,000 cash settlement and take the whole field and not give anything else. However, according to the opinion that says that Jules could give $1,000 and you will not be able to collect the field, Jules can force you to collect the cash as opposed to collecting the field. So then why can't, instead of Jules paying cash, Jules could pay 5% of the field? That is the cash payment that he's giving you. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Amarlei responds to him, he says, basically, you're right. According to that opinion, we must be referring to a scenario of an apaitiki. What is an apaitiki? Apaitiki is a designated lien. So when I borrowed money from Eric, Eric didn't just say, well, all your fields are owed to me. Eric pointed to that field that I sold to Jules, and he says, that field, that's the one I want. So we're going to write in the document that that's the primary, not just primary, it is the lien. That is the lien. And in that case, the buyer, in this case Jules, does not have a right to even according to the opinion that says that normally the buyer could put the creditor to the side with money, pay cash for the loan. In the case of an apaitiki, he can't. Apaitiki, in a certain sense, is sort of like a sale. We've already sort of agreed that if you can't pay, I'm buying the field. And I could buy it even if somebody else, the creditor could take it, even if somebody else has quote unquote bought it, because that buying wasn't valid.
First right to the field.
And are we on 96B now, Rabbi?
No, 96A, and we are 2 lines above the wide lines. Amar Rava. Gazal, he stole v'hishbiach, an increase in value, and machar, and then he sold it. The Gazal v'hishbiach v'hirish, or he stole it, he increased in value, and he inherited it to his kids. Ma shehishbiach machar, ma shehishbiach hirish. The shvach, the increase in value of what he stole, is handed over to the next guy. Now, if you remember from yesterday and from it must have been Sunday, actually Monday, Tuesday and Monday. Okay, basically as follows: before the decree of Usha, then the law was that the thief got paid. The thief would have to reimburse the owner of the field 30%. And this is under a standard arrangement where an investor would come along and increase the value of the field and pay you 30% for the capital, for allowing your field to be increased in value. And he got the benefits. According to that version, the thief has to pay 30% to the owner. The remaining 70% would be kept either by the person he sold it to or by the inheritors. However, post Usha, they said the thief must reimburse you for the field cash, and they said the field stays by the thief. Right? We said we do not allow you to permit a thief to return a stolen item if he wants to repent. Presumably, this is the habitual thief, the gang thief, not the guy organized crime, not the guy who was in one time stole it because he was hungry. Okay, so okay, now boy Rava hishbiach lekach mahu. So it's true that the thief, post Usha, does not need to return his item if he increased in value. What happens if the thief did not increase in value? So you have Mr. Organized Crime, right? And we'll call him OC, and he goes ahead and he steals fields for a living, and he steals his fields, and then he goes and sells them. So he sells the field, and the buyer increases in value. The buyer puts an investment. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't care. Does the buyer, so the thief now we say, post Usha, we say that, look, we want the thief to repent. We'll make him pay cash. We're not going to make him return the fields because it increased in value. But does the buyer have the same privileges? And the answer is, that was Rava's question. The answer is, Botzer the buyer, after he asked the question, he answered the question, second wide line, 96a. What did the thief sell the buyer? Any right that he had, he sold to the buyer. And because Mr. Organized Crime had the right, if he increased the field in value, to pay cash and keep the field, because that was a decree of Usha. Similarly, the buyer has the same rights. But Rava wants to know, what about if a non-Jew increases in value? Okay, why are we making this decree of Usha? Because we want people to be able to repent, right? If you remember from Monday, I wasn't here, but presumably you remember the story of the guy. His wife said to him, "Even your belt you don't own, right? You literally, you're one of these rioters that empties loot stores. You don't even own your belt. How could you repent? There's nothing that you own. Everything that you have is stolen." So the rabbi said, "No. We want you to repent, pay cash, whatever you have, keep." Now, this all makes sense for a Jew. We want him to repent, but if it's a non-Jew, it's so important that he be able to fulfill a penitence. He should be able to atone for his sins. Why would we make this decree? Okay, you're right. This is the scenario. If you're going to Zavne Yisrael, the non-Jew sold it to a Jew. Okay, safe. So the Mr. Organized Crime was actually a non-Jew, right? And he sold it to a Jew. He says, well, who cares? He has the same privileges as the non-Jew who stole it. Okay, it must be a scenario where a Jew stole it. He sold it to a non-Jew. So the non-Jew increased the value of the property and then sold it to a Jew. Right? So you get the story. The Jew is the robber, the non-Jew is the investor, and the Jew is the buyer. Right? He's a private equity firm that comes in. What's the story? Because the first guy and the last guy are Jews, the rabbis made a decree. Because ultimately speaking, the investor here was a non-Jew, then therefore the rabbis would not enact the decree of Usha. Gemara says, take it, let it stand, it remains unresolved. Okay, now we slightly twist. We're going here on, remember the concept of Shinoi Kaina. Shinoi is a change. What constitutes a quote-unquote change? So so this is a very important Gemara to understand. What is a change? What is a change? If I fold the folding table, is that a change? No, obviously not, because it's a folding table. It's meant to fold. What kind? Amr Papa. Hayman the Gozel Diklam Chaveri. Very interesting story. Guy he stole a palm tree. How do you steal a palm tree? You take a chainsaw, right? Or a backhoe, and you dig it out. That's what he did. Katli, he killed it, meaning he uprooted it. Avagad the Shadia Me'ara La'ara. So he took the backhoe, he dug it up, he put it on a flatbed and drove it somewhere else and replanted it. Me'ara La'ara Day, so he replanted his own property. Loikani, he still has not acquired it. My timer, Mikara Diklan Mikri, Vahashtanami Diklan Mikri. It's the same tree. Originally, it was a palm tree. It's still a palm tree. It's just a different guy's property. It's not considered a Shina Kaina. That's a pretty radical, right? He engaged in pretty radical changes, at least you might think. Uprooting a palm tree.
Yeah, the word koning.
Kona means to acquire it.
Oh, okay.
Meaning, if he acquires the palm tree, then he can't return the palm tree anymore. He has to pay cash. At this point, he uprooted it, replanted it. No. Drive it back, get your backhoe again, take it back, and give it back to the original owner. Okay, what do you do? Dikla v'avad guvi. It looks like he cut it up. Is that the translated? Yeah, he turned it into logs. Loikani doesn't acquire it. Why? Because logs of palms are also called palm logs. So it's still called a palm tree. Let's say he took guvi, he took the logs, the timber, vavidnu kshuri, and he cut it to size. He made beams, cutting. So the Gemara says cutting, he does acquire it. Kshuri ravravi, he took large beams, lumber, vavidnu kshuri zutri, and he cut them into small beams, loy cutting. He does not acquire it. Why? Because they're both called beams. Right? If you go to the lumber section, there's different size lumber. So you had one size lumber, now you have two sizes of lumber. It doesn't count. Not considered a change. However, avinu kitsutsaisa kani. If you made a cut to size studs for the house, then you do acquire it. Amarova. So Rova says, Haiman de goza luliva. A guy stole a lulav. What's a lulav? It's a palm branch, or palm frond, I think is the technical term. Davidnu hutzi. He cut off a palm frond, right? There's a long branch, there's a long stiff part, and there are sort of these long leaves that come out. So the guy removed the leaves from the frond. Kani. He acquires it. The mikara luliva mekri. Originally, it's called a lulav. That's a frond. Vahash hutzi, and now it's called palm leaves. Let's say he took hutzi. He took these palm leaves. Vavidnu chufya. Chufya is some sort of broom. It's a Talmudical broom. It comes up very often in Talmud. Apparently, they used to use the palm leaves to make a broom, or some sort of implement that was good to sweeping. I don't know. Presumably, it was the same as the broom that we have. I don't know. Okay, so the halacha is kani. You do acquire it. Mikara hutzi v'hashta chufya. Originally, it was leaves. Now it's a broom. Chufya v'abdi shashura. So you took these broom pieces and you turned it into a string, or a rope. Loy kani doesn't acquire it. Why? My time. You sort of can undo it, and then it turns back into a broom. Boy Rapapa. Rapapa says, Nechlika to Yumitz Mahu. Okay, so now we cross over into the field of Hilchas Lulav, of Sukkos. Right? On Sukkos, we take part of the mitzvah of Daled Minim is to take a palm branch. We actually take a closed palm branch. In other words, a palm branch it starts off as a long stick and then it opens. Right?
Right.
So
these are young shoots.
These are right. These are the young version of the fronds before it sort of expands. Generally speaking, if you look at palm tree, the lulav is the center of the palm, and then once it starts expanding, it falls to the side and it starts hanging over. Okay, so let's say a guy has this straight frond, right? It's like a lulav, like we use on sukkahs, and the middle leaf splits. What's the story? Is that considered a change or not? Really, what he's asking is that if it's sukkah's time, this is not a lulav that you want, because if the middle leaf splits, it's not kosher. We'll see. Maybe it is kosher. We'll get to it in a moment. But if it's a change with regard to the laws of lulav on sukkahs, is that considered a change also with regard to the laws of geneva, of stealing? So the Gemara says, Tashma, the Amr of Masan, Amr of Yeshua, ben Levi, nitla to yumis posel. If the middle leaf was removed, then the lulav is invalid. Ma'alav hodin lenachliko. That if the middle leaf is split, it has the same law. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Loi, nitla shayni da chasula. Taking the middle leaf, removing it is different because the lulav now is missing. It's incomplete. Ikadamri, there's a second version, however, Tashma, the Amr of Masan, Amr of Yeshua, ben Levi, if the middle leaf is split, uposel. If the middle leaf is split, then it is invalid. Shmamina. Shmamina, we see from here that this would be considered a change also with regard to the laws of geneva, of robbery, and you would acquire palm branch. You'd have to reimburse the owner for the value of the palm branch, but you would not have to return the item. Papa says, these are a bunch of scenarios. They're all pretty similar. A guy steals afra, he steals mud, sand, Va'avde levinta, he turns it into a brick. Okay, so I don't think this was fired yet. I think it was just put into the form of a brick. Loikani, you didn't acquire. My time up. The hadr mash for the afra because you could turn it back into mud. That's why I presume the way it works, once it goes into a kiln, I don't think you can just turn a brick into mud once it's fired in a kiln.
Right.
I think it's probably before it's fired.
Sure.
Levinta va'avde afra. Let's say you took a brick. So you had the brick, it was in the mold, it was ready to be fired, or maybe it was going to be used without firing it. Va'avde afra, and then you turned it into mud. The halacha is kani, you acquire it. My amrit. Well, 1 second. You can say Dilma Hadar Adila Levinta. You can put it back into the mold. Hi Levinta Achritahu. Padim Kadosh is Bolokan. That's a different brick. You took a mud brick, you smashed it, you destroyed it. So now you say it's not a change because I could turn it back into a brick. Yeah, that's a new brick. It's not the brick that you stole. And therefore you'd have to pay. But Omer Papa says, Hi man the Gozel Naska Mechavri. Somebody stole a bar of silver, bullion. V'avid Zuzi, he took the bar, he melted it down, he minted coins, like honey. He does not acquire the bar. My time, al hadar av lunaska. You can melt down the coins and turn them into bars. Zuzi v'avdinu naska. Let's say you stole coins, you turn them into bars. Kani, you do acquire it. My amrit. 1 second. What are you going to say? Hadar av zuzi. If you took the coins, melted them down into a bar, you could also melt down the bar and turn them into coins. Yeah, but those are new coins. Panu chadash is bolakan. Shchimi va'avdinu chadti. So you had coins that were blackened. You know, if you look at silver coins, any silver coins in the past are always black. They what's it called? Tarnish. They tarnish very quickly. So yeah, it's a shchimi. They got black and they tarnished. So v'avdinu chadti, and you sort of polished them and you made them like new. Loikani, you don't acquire it. However, chadti, if there were no coins, v'avdinu shchimi, and he somehow figured out how to tarnish them super quickly. Right, so he deliberately tarnished and blackened his coins. Kani, you do acquire. My amrit, what are you going to say? You can just polish them and make them like new. No. Media dia shechmail. And this, if you look at the older silver alloys, this is true. You can tell if something was blackened or if it's original fresh silver. Okay. Zaklal, this is a general rule. All robbers pay the value of. They pay the value of what they stole at the time they stole it. Now, the Mishnah gave numerous examples, and this general rule is just a repetition. So what's it coming to include? What's it coming to include? Rabbi Loi, to include what Rabbi Loi said, Gonav Tla v'nasa ayil. He stole a sheep, a lamb, I'm sorry, thank you. V'nasa ayil became a ram, it became older. Egel, he stole a calf, v'nasa shor, it became an ox. That is considered nasa shini biyadu dikani. That's considered a change, and you acquire the animal. Tavach u'macha. Let's say you slaughtered or sold this animal. Shalayu tevach, shalayu meicher. You would not pay 4 and 5 because you stole and sold your own animal. Okay. Hahu gavra digosal padna de tur mechavri. A guy stole a pair of oxen from his friend. Ozil karabu karba. He went ahead and he plowed his field with it. Zorabu zora, and then he sowed his field with it. The Saif Adrenal Amari, and then he gave it back. Right? How convenient. Right?
Yeah.
Stole a car, used it for 2 weeks, then he returns it. Shach. Thank you. Also, the commander of Nachman. So he came in front of Rav Nachman, Amar Lahu. Now just hold your horses on the questions here, because this is not exactly what we learned. Also, the commander of Nachman, Amar Lahu, Zilu Shaimu Shifcha de Ashbach. Go ahead and figure out what's the rental value of the pair of oxen for the week, for what he used it for. How much benefit did he derive from it? Amalei Rava, so Rava says, 1 second. Turi Ashbach, did he increase the value of the oxen? No. Ara Ashbach, he didn't increase the value of the land. The opposite's true. He increased the value of the land. So why exactly? Why exactly is he paying for the? Why should the total increase in value of the land be paid for to the owner of the ox? Rava understood that Rav Nachman says, look, he took his land, right? And this is agricultural land. So the land is worth $1,000. Now he's plowed it and sowed it. That's worth $1,500, let's say. So Rav Nachman says, okay, you have to pay $500. So Rava says, I understand. Why should you have to pay 500? It's the property that increased in value. What does the property have to do with the owner of the stolen oxen? Together? Amar Mik, so Rav Nachman says, Amar Mik Hamin and Shami. Kule Paga Kemna. I didn't say he has to pay the full 500. I said he has to pay half, 250. So Amar Lei Seif Seif Xelahu, V'Kahadrabeina. Rav says, I don't understand. He stole the animal, he's giving back the animal. Why does he have to pay anything? Who cares what he did with the animal in the interim?
Well.
But the Tanan we learned, Kol Gazlana Mishalma Kshatz Xela. Any robber pays the value of what he stole at the time that he stole it, and he's returning the animal as he stole it. So why does he have to pay anything?
Because the use of the animal was denied to its original owner while it was in the control of the thief. The thief owes the owner for what the owner could have accomplished with the animal if he'd had the animal.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to slice and dice what you're saying, and then you'll have to wait for tomorrow.
That's all right. I don't like what you're saying. I had the rocket launchers of puns ready to go.
And we'll continue this tomorrow. Okay. But let's just take what you're saying and narrowly focus on to specifically thievery, Geneva. A Ganev only pays thievery. He does not pay anything else. Nothing else. Even the loss of revenue, loss of business, none of those charges. However,
Why? It may explain another time, maybe, but I'm wondering why.
Okay, I think we'll get to it later on in the Masechta as well. The specific source, I believe it's a verse that you only pay for the thievery, don't pay for benefit. Now, but to take what you're saying in a moment, to just, like I said, I'm going to cut what you said in a few pieces. If, however, he did not steal it, he didn't engage in an act that legally qualifies as stealing, then again, we'll have to discuss this, and then you would have to pay it, and we'll have to discuss this. This is really top of Tzad now. We're really going to get this tomorrow. Understand those distinctions. But to make it very clear, a thief will never pay anything more than what he stole at the value at the time it was stolen, unless he's paying K for $1.
Okay, I know this is going to get dealt with down the line, but I just want to point out that it deprives the system so far.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. What about penalizing the behavior, and what about consistently stealing? That's on everybody's mind. If I'm telling you that a thief only pays the stealing, effectively we're incentivizing one day stealing, rentals. Right. Okay, let's continue. So that was Rava's question. Rava's question is, why are you making them pay for the labor when there's no such payments? Shachris is 7 today, right?
Yes. Yeah, Wednesday.
Okay. I've said to you, so this is Rav Nachman says to Rava, I've told you in the past, when I'm sitting in court, don't tell me things. Okay? The Amr Huna Chavran, Eloi, Aloi, Ano Shvur Malka, Achi Bedina. Rav Huna has already said about me that me and my brother Shvur Malka, that's a reference to Shmuel, we are brothers in the court, meaning we're the most proficient judges. Me and Shmuel. By the way, the halacha follows Shmuel as it pertains to court cases. Rav and Shmuel disagree very often. Virtually always, with maybe 2 or 3 exceptions, the halacha follows Rav as it pertains to halachic law, and Shmuel as it pertains to monetary law. And that was because Shmuel was a very sharp judge. You see, Rav Huna says that Shmuel, Rav Nachman, those are the sharpest judges. Okay, so in other words, why am I giving him this extra penalty if the law doesn't require it? The answer is, he's a professional robber. And I need to make sure that he learns his lesson, and I want to penalize him by making him pay for the rental value. Does that answer your question? Okay. Goes al behema v'hiskina. He stole an animal. He's kept it long enough. V'hiskina. It's gotten old. Doesn't work anymore. Avodim v'hiskinu. Or he stole slaves and they got older. Mishalim g'shas exhalo. This constitutes a shino, a change, and you pay the value the value of the slave or the animal as it was when it was stolen. Reb Meir says, "Ba'avodim omer loy harei shalach l'fanecha." With regards to thieves, with regards to slaves, he can return the slave as is. Okay, what's the reason for this? Even though the slave is much older and can't do work, the reason is because the slave is compared to property.
Mhm.
and property cannot be stolen. Obviously, you can't lift the property and steal it. Similarly, even though you could lift a slave and steal him,
Exactly. There's the debate, you know.
but because they have the halachically the same, they're in the same category. Therefore, even though technically you can steal him, maybe you tie him up in a straitjacket and carry him away, but practically speaking, it would not have any legal ramifications.
Mhm.
Rabbi Meir says, with regard to slaves, you say this, you just return it as is. Okay, goes on matbea v'nistak. You stole a coin, and then it got cracked, so the coin isn't worth as much. Paris, a fruit, v'herkivu, it rotted. Yayin, wine, v'hichmetz, it spoiled. It became vinegar. Mishalim b'shas exela, you pay the value of the item as it was worth when you stole it. Now we get to changes that are so minor and imperceptible that these do not constitute changes. So you think glass of wine, now it's a glass of vinegar. It's kind of an obvious change, right? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
A coin that was cracked, it's sort of, right? Sort of a physical change. What happens in matbea v'nifsal? So thankfully we live in a country that has, at least for the past 200 and something years, has paid its debt every month, and we have a currency that's actually worth something. It hasn't been shifting around. Some countries, have had Israel's on its third currency in 75 years, right?
Right.
And Israel's fairly good. You can go to Argentina or Zimbabwe, and its currency is just totally a joke. So matbea v'nifsal. So he had a lira, in 1948. I think it's 1955 or something when they switched it over, or it was a shekel in 1988, and now it's the same shekel, but it's 1993, and this shekel chadash, and the old shekels are worthless. Okay, so matbea v'nifsal, truma v'nitmis. He had truma, but the truma became tamei, can no longer be eaten by the kohen. He had chametz v'overall of a Pesach, and now Pesach it's been through Pesach, it's owned by a Jew. You're not allowed to benefit from the chametz. Behema v'nitzavda ba'avera, an animal which was a participant to the animal was part of what he calls bestiality. He was a victim of bestiality. And the law here is that the man or woman that engaged in that activity is killed. It's a capital crime, and the animal is killed as well. Okay, or you invalidate it for sacrifice. Or it was a shuram wood, and it was going to be killed because it was killing people. The animal was a murderous animal, and it was going to go out to be killed because of its murders. It's killing. So he says, he's able to return the animal as is and tell him, here's your animal, same animal that I stole, right here it is. You can take it back. It's exactly the same animal. There's no physical difference, right? Just because the animal can no longer be used as a sacrifice, or it's going to be killed by the court in a couple of days, right? Or it's truma and it's tamei. Well, it looks the same, doesn't it? Or it's a shekel and now it's a shekel chadash. Well, it doesn't make a difference. It's the same. It looks the same. It's exactly the same. You can return it as it's. Amr Papa. Papa says, Lo hiskina mamish. Hiskina doesn't necessarily mean that it got older. El afilu kochsha, even if you made it weak. So Gemara says, Vanan hiskina tnan. The Mishnah says it got older. So the Gemara says, no. Kochsha could go, Amri kochsha ke'en hiskina. The loy bori. In other words, if you so just like when an animal gets older, its capacity for work diminishes. Obviously, we're talking here, there's a phase of maturity, which means the older the animal gets, it actually becomes more useful. And then once the animal's at peak maturity, as it gets older, its strength degrades.
Right.
So just like that type of degradation counts as a change, and you're not returning the same animal anymore, you have to pay. So too, if a person physically damages the animals permanently, that it reduces its capacity for work, that also qualifies in the same category. It has to be a permanent damage. Let's say, however, he makes the cow overweight. He stuffs it with food, so it loses its capacity for work. That's that's presumably temporary. Presumably, if you could give it the same, you just starve it, and the animal will get back its strength or make it work, and you'll build muscle again. that you would not have to pay. That you would be able to return the animal as is. Because presumably, if the animal's fattened and has less capacity for work, if you sort of work it harder and give it less food, presumably it would become stronger again. That's not a permanent change, it's a temporary change, and therefore you can return the animal as is. Again, I have to presume that the laws of strain of human beings apply to animals, and not a veterinarian. Amarle Mark Shisha Vreder of Chizdel or Ravashi. So Mark Shisha, the son of Rav Chizdel, says to Ravashi, Pachik Amar Mishmeder of Yechanan, I feel a gon of Tlav and Asa Ayal. Ravashi, they said this in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. If you stole a lamb, Vanasa Ayal became matured, Egel Vanasa Shar, a calf turned into an ox, Nasa Shini Biyodai Vikonai. That maturity is considered a change sufficient that you acquire it. So Amrulais, said to him back, Lav Aminalach, did I not tell you, Tachlef Gavra? Don't confuse the names. Hahu Mishmeder of Eloi Itmar. I heard this in the name of Rabbi Eloi, not in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Okay. Reb Meir Omer, Ba'avodim Omer Loi Harei Shalach L'fanecha. The time is 54. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. This really goes into Tzadik Zayin. So stop here. Hopefully, at some point today, I'll figure out what my schedule